I simulated the Premier League season 10,000 times and I got unbelievable results. We've got crazy league tables, surprise champions and relegations, and the most likely Premier League table as well. But first, in simulation 3087, we found what could be one of the most iconic Premier League seasons ever. Can you tell I'm excited? Now, first of all, the bottom half isn't anything strange, as Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich are all relegated, meaning in back-to-back seasons, all three promoted sides have gone straight back down. But this simulation, it goes left a bit. It goes crazy when we look at the top half. This season gave us the biggest title race you'll ever see. Just 1 point splits first to fourth. First to fourth. Can you imagine that? Now, because of the low points distribution at the top of the table, it means that the whole league has been compressed and is closer together than ever before in terms of points accrued. This means that the European spots go down to the last day, and the 68 points needed for the top four last season wouldn't be enough this season. But it also means that teams in the middle of the pack are so close together, but because of this, they've left the three relegation teams behind, which is something we may see again, but not until simulation 8910. So if you cast your minds back to the 2002-2003 season, West Ham were relegated on 42 points, which was a huge shock considering that 40 points is usually guaranteed safety. In fact, 27 points was enough to be safe last season. But this simulation provided one of the best yet most heartbreaking relegation battles of all time. So Ipswich fans, it's bad news. You got relegated fairly early, but Leicester and Forest went down in heartbreaking fashion. In this simulation, Forest actually won more games than Manchester United, who only survived the drop on goal difference. Can you imagine? To put this into context, Man United's worst Premier League tally is 58, which came in the 2021-22 season, but 44 points would absolutely shatter that record. There was actually another simulation that had Man United with even less points coming up. Crystal Palace, by the way, finishing on 60 points, only missed out on Champions League football by 3 points. Actually, whilst we're on the topic of Crystal Palace, take a look at this for a wild simulation. When we looked at the master table, we realised that this final table has a less than 1% chance of happening because Palace won the league with 86 points. Only losing 2 games all year, which would possibly be up there with Leicester's title win in 15-16. And this is what football's about, right? Football is a script that gets written every single second, so why not dream a little bit? Whilst we're on the topic of relegation, let's have a look at some percentages. So the simulation only had Southampton staying up 19.38% of the time, which gives them the highest chance of being relegated according to the 10,000 simulations. For Ipswich, it was pretty similar, surviving the drop 26.17% of the time, but the next team is interesting as it's Leicester City. So despite being the third highest percentage of going down, with 44.33%, they also had a 51.83% likelihood on finishing between 11th and 17th. Before we touch on the title race and who has the highest chance of winning the league, there's one figure I want to touch on, because Crystal Palace, 1 league win in 10,000 simulations, wasn't the only strange title winning season. And simulation 4077 did not disappoint. It never does. It really never does. Because this time the league was decided on goals scored. That's right, not goal difference, but goals scored. This simulation is possibly the weirdest one yet, because not only did Arsenal finish 5th, but Manchester City finished 6th with only 68 points, giving them Europa League football. Can you imagine how weird that would be if Manchester City were in the Europa League? Pep walking them out to... As much as that slaps, just doesn't feel right with Pep. So, when it comes to point distributions of each team, the simulation had a lot of love for West Ham and Palace, who got over 50 points in roughly 5,000 simulations. In fact, they averaged more points over the 10,000 simulations than Brighton, who many people expect good things from this season. Surprisingly, the simulation also gave Chelsea the 4th highest points distribution on average, giving them over 70 points in a fair few simulations. The simulation gave Manchester United the 8th best point distribution, but simulation 2307 gave them their most embarrassing season in their entire history. So if you start from the top and work your way down the table, you don't really realise just how insane this simulation actually is until you reach Manchester United, because they only won 6 games all year and finished with 25 points at the foot of the table. I can't even imagine what the ripple effects of this would be. Great podcast, by the way. But I got to be honest, if it did happen, it would be an interesting observation from a neutral perspective. They'd lose their shit. Is what I'm saying. But this simulation wasn't interesting because of Man United's failings. This is the simulation that needed the least amount of points to win the league. The current record for this is the 75 points that Man United accrued in the 96-97 season that won them the league. But in simulation 8,323, 68 points was enough to win the whole damn thing. I would love to see that. And interestingly, despite the amount of points being so low, it didn't throw up any unlikely winner as you'd expect. Instead, it just compressed the league together with only 4 points separating first place Man City and fifth place Crystal Palace. Them again, yeah, this simulation bloody loves the Palace. We had to change the name of this next simulation. Simulation 4441 is known as the Chaos Simulation because on the last day of the season, 6 teams were fighting it out in a relegation battle, with all the teams barring Brentford finishing on 90 points at the end. Also, Arsenal winning the league. This could go down as one of the best seasons in history if it happened for real. Because not only was there a close title race, an even closer relegation battle, but also a 3-way race for top 4. And again, not really sure what's going on with Man United, but at least, hey, you didn't go down. Before we show you the final league table standings and who is most likely to finish where and who won the title on most occasions, I want to show you this. It's my pick. No. So this one's for the mid-table team fans, but it's also the simulation with the biggest points difference between first and second. Arsenal win the league with an impressive 23-point difference between them and Manchester City. But in what was a good season for Arsenal, it was an equally good season for Bournemouth, Wolves, Fulham and Brentford, who all finish in the European places. This came at the expense of teams like Man United, Newcastle, Chelsea and Tottenham, who all had a poor season in simulation 815. And I think there is some, that is realistic in the sense that I think that mid-table pack, I'm just thinking about my feelings. That mid-table group, I think, will be good this year. Right, it's time to show you this table again. But now we're going to tell you who won the league on the most occasions in the 10,000 simulation. So there were 11 different league title winners in the simulation, with West Ham and Palace and Brighton all winning it once in the 10,000 simulations. Man United won it 1.5% of the time, which means they won 15 league titles out of the 10,000 attempts. Aston Villa won it 43 times. Newcastle won it 50 times. Tottenham 56 times. Tottenham 56. A trophy. Chelsea won it 82 times. Then we take that big step up as Liverpool won it 1,244 times out of the 10,000. We then take another big step up because Arsenal won the league title 3,229 times in the simulation. But was that the most? Well, Manchester City, they won it 5,278 times, which means they won the league in over half of the simulations made. But make sure you don't miss out on my predictions, okay? And let me know yours in the comments down below. If you don't want to miss out on my predictions, hit that subscribe button. Go on.